For the last 20 plus years, graphic artist Brad Klausen has been generating imagery for rock posters from Pearl Jam, Queens of the Stone Age, U2, and more. He's out with his new book sharing the rock images along with a peek into the personal relationships with the rock musicians he's designed for. Brad joins me now. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a really cool book.
Thank you so much.
Seeing the start and then as you go on. How did you get started making posters for rock bands?
Well, it was from getting to work for Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
I started working for them, and I didn't start making posters for at least probably the first 4 years. I was just doing album artwork and mailers for their fan club and T-shirt and stuff like that. And it wasn't until there was a poster design class happening at the School of Visual Concepts down at South Lake Union. And it was a poster class taught by another Seattle artist named Jeff Kleinsmith. And I just started taking that class and then I was already working for Pearl Jam.
Right.
And so they had a show that they were playing down at the Showbox. And I asked if I could do the poster for that show and then just kind of started from there.
And that's your first poster. This is your book cover.
Correct.
And you had your first poster in the book. You start the book that way. Mm-hmm. Did you realize at the time when you were making that poster that you wanted to do more?
Yeah, it was actually all that I had really wanted to do as far as graphic design for music goes. I really wanted to do posters for the shows. That's where you get to be kind of the most creatively free, and the bands usually let you have the most. They don't get too involved in what you're doing. They give you the most freedom to do that stuff.
Versus, say, the album covers or.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for like album artwork. The bands are much more hands-on for that stuff.
So
for the posters, they let the artist just kind of do whatever they want. Okay. So that was always a desire.
And these are some of the posters we're seeing. Tell me about, so that was just the start, and tell me about the work and this book in particular.
It's just, the book came about from having to move through different areas of Seattle, from living in Ballard to Wallingford to Magnolia, and I have these flat files full of all of my drawings.
This is an homage to Evel Knievel here, I think, right?
Yes, it was at the Pearl Jam played at the Gorge, and Eddie Vedder is a big Evel Knievel fan, so that was a way to kind of incorporate the landscape as well as his interest in Evel Knievel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had all of these, I interrupted you just for that one, but you had all of these flats, and you thought...
Oh, well, so every time I've had to move, I have these big, flat file drawers full of drawings and full of all the work that goes into that, and no one ever gets to see those drawings except for me when I'm moving all of these things. And I, as an artist, always enjoy getting to see all the pieces that get to make a final piece of artwork.
The process.
The process, yeah. And so when I was moving, I would move all these drawings, and I always thought it was such a bummer that no one else gets to see these. So I wanted to figure out a way to incorporate all the sketches and all the pieces and all the parts so that people could see the making of the posters.
And here's is that process right here. So you'll see on one page of the book that you have kind of how you started in the pieces there. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so usually every poster starts off as just a pencil sketch or like a really rough thumbnail sketch. And so the idea behind the book was to be able to show everybody the process from that scribbled pencil napkin sketch to the final piece and all the different things that went into putting it together.
Yeah, I particularly kept staring at this one. I thought this was so fascinating.
Oh yeah, that was for a charity organization called Pangea Seed. And it was an effort to bring awareness about shark finning, and so that if anybody out there, Pangea Seed is a really amazing organization that tries to help the oceans and the sea life of the marine life of the world, and so that was specifically for that.
And we should say you worked with Pearl Jam for about 10 years or 8 years, just Pearl Jam, and then you started your own design company, working with lots of rock artists then.
Correct. Yeah. And so that was, I think everybody in my family and my friends and family thought I was crazy when I was going to leave working for Pearl Jam and just go out on my own. But I fell so in love with making posters that it took up all my time. I wanted to just do that and not really do album artwork or do any other stuff. I wanted to focus solely on illustration for posters. So I ventured out onto my own and have been doing that since 2008, I believe.
And you brought Pearl Jam with you, obviously, as a client, and then it opened up to all these other artists.
Yeah, well, and that just through working for Pearl Jam and getting to stand on their shoulders, other bands saw my work through that. So if not for working for them, I wouldn't have had the exposure to all these other different bands. And so that really springboarded me into getting to work with all these other people.
And how was it getting to know what we see as rock stars, literally? How was it getting to know them as you were on the level and working with them?
It was really interesting because I was 15 in 1991, so when the whole Seattle Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden thing happened, I was that prime demographic of just being a fan of that stuff. And so then getting to go work with them was just, my mom hates this word, but surreal. It was.
Sorry, Mom.
Yes, sorry. It was just a very surreal thing to go from watching these people on MTV and reading about them in magazines, then get to work with them. And I always think of it like this way, that it's such a bizarre situation to put anybody into, and to go to arenas around the globe and have 30,000, 50,000 people screaming for you. They're out in front of your hotel, at night trying to get your attention, that stuff. That's going to be difficult for anybody to manage. But all the guys in Pearl Jam seem to be relatively, for lack of a better term, normal people based on that high pressure situation. So it was really interesting as such a huge fan to get to meet them all. And it was my dog. I got to take my dog into work with me every day. And she really helped break that barrier down, because when I was nervous to meet any of these guys that I'd just seen on TV, my dog just thought they were just regular people. She was like, throw the ball.
What's a rock star?
Yeah, she doesn't know who Jeff Ament or Eddie Vedder or these people are. They're just normal people. And that really kind of helped get my brain out of this like teenage fandom. You know, go like, okay, they're just people.
So you can get the work done. Well, thank you for the book. It's a really interesting look, especially as you incorporate, like you mentioned with Eddie Vedder and Evel Knievel, incorporate those hobbies and interests. So it's fascinating to look through. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And Brad will be sharing stories from his book tonight, Monday, November 11th, at Elliott Bay Book Company at 7 p.m.